I was halfway through my morning tea when I saw it. A story from Aunt Linda popped up on Instagram, her backyard strung with fairy lights, laughter echoing in the background. The next post, Brielle, in a white sundress, holding a bouquet, and surrounded by about 100 people. I blinked, paused the video, and counted. 3 long tables, folded name cards, champagne glasses, people I hadn't seen in years, out-of-state cousins, my mom's old college roommates, even Uncle Rob who hates flying. It was a bridal shower for Brielle, my sister, and I had no idea it was happening. No invite, no text, not even a vague "we're planning something soon." Nothing. The worst part, just last week I mailed Brielle a handmade card, pressed lavender from my garden, a watercolor sketch of her and Jonah from their engagement photo. I spent hours on it. She'd even liked the post when I shared the process. So why was I the only one not there? I scrolled through more stories. Everyone looked so at ease, so happy, like I didn't even exist. Like they had rehearsed life without me in it. I could feel it, something tightening in my chest. This wasn't an oversight. This felt planned. I pulled up my mom's contact, texted her 5 words, "Why wasn't I invited, Mom?" 3 dots blinked for a long time. Then her reply came in. "We didn't want another incident. It's for the best." Her text sat there on my screen, glowing like a warning sign. We didn't want another incident. It's for the best. Another incident. Those 2 words spun in my head until they pulled me backwards straight into last Thanksgiving. The table had been overflowing with food, turkey, mashed potatoes, my dad's overcooked rolls, but the real main course was Brielle's engagement news. She had just held up her ring, and everyone had erupted like fireworks. Glasses clinking, cameras flashing, my aunt crying happy tears. And me? I had just landed my first national campaign with a huge tech brand. The biggest job of my career so far. But when I mentioned it, I got a polite nod and a murmured, "That's nice," before someone called for another toast to Brielle. Then my mom said it. "Maybe now you'll find something stable, Callie. Artists and their moods. You know how it is." The words weren't even whispered. She said them like a joke right across the table in front of everyone, and everyone laughed, or at least they didn't stop her. I remember the burn in my chest like I'd swallowed something sharp. I remember forcing a smile while Brielle's new fiancé poured her more champagne. I'd told myself then it wasn't intentional, that my family didn't mean to make me feel small. But now, staring at that text from my mom, the pieces snapped into place. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a pattern. A narrative they'd built about me, difficult, emotional, unstable. And the more I replayed that Thanksgiving in my mind, the clearer it became. I'd been cast as the problem for years, and everyone had just accepted it. Back then, I swallowed it to keep the peace. Now I could feel something rising in me, a slow, steady anger that tasted almost like clarity. I stared at my phone for a long time after that memory faded. Then, without overthinking it, I hit call on my mom's contact. She picked up on the second ring. "Hi, sweetie. Everything okay?" I didn't even bother with small talk. Why wasn't I invited to Brielle's shower? There was a pause. Just long enough to make it clear she'd been expecting this. Then she sighed. "Oh, Callie, please don't make this into a thing." A thing, I repeated. It was a 100-person event. Everyone was there except me. Her voice shifted, too calm, too careful. "You always make things about you, Callie. We didn't want any drama. This was about Brielle." There it was. The script they always pull out when I ask questions. When I stand up for myself. The moment I show emotion, it's drama. Except this time I didn't feel rage. I felt clear. Like I was finally seeing my family for exactly what it was. "I see," I said quietly, and then I hung up. Next, I called my aunt. She answered with her usual clipped tone. "Hello?" I didn't waste a second. "Did you seriously plan a 100+ guest party and not even consider inviting me?" Another pause. Then she said it. "You bring a lot of tension. Brielle deserves joy, Callie." As if I was some cloud that blocked the sun. As if my presence would have ruined her perfect little event. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just ended the call. And that's when I checked my phone again. Notifications were coming in. Group messages I was somehow still part of. I clicked one open and my breath caught in my throat. It was from my mom. At least we'll avoid one of her meltdowns this time. The message disappeared seconds later, deleted, but not before I got the screenshot. And in that moment, something inside me shifted. I wasn't just hurt anymore. I was documenting everything. Because if they were going to erase me from the story, I was going to start writing my own. After the screenshot, everything got quiet, not peaceful, not calm, just numb. I couldn't focus. My brain felt like a browser with 100 tabs open and none of them loading. 3 deadlines passed. 2 emails sat unopened. I'd stare at a blank design screen for hours, cursor blinking, heart racing. And I couldn't explain why I felt like I was under attack until the DMs started. A message from a cousin I hadn't spoken to in 2 years. "Hey, heard you were too busy to make the shower. Hope everything's okay." Too busy. That's what they were saying now. Not that I'd been excluded, not that I wasn't even told it was happening, but that I had chosen not to go. They were rewriting the story in real time and casting me as the villain. And it was working. 2 days later, one of my favorite clients, someone I'd worked with for nearly a year, pulled out of our upcoming campaign. The email was polite but cold. "We've just decided to go in another direction. There's been some concern internally about emotional reliability." Emotional, reliable. The 2 words that followed me everywhere my mother's voice ever reached. And that's when it hit me. My uncle plays golf with their creative director. The same uncle who once called me moody with a MacBook as a joke at Christmas. This wasn't random. My family wasn't just excluding me. They were sabotaging me. Quietly, subtly, with fake smiles and real consequences. And that's when I grabbed my old leather-bound sketchbook, not for drawing, but to start recording every message, every comment, every instance where someone twisted the truth to protect their version of events. If they were going to erase me behind my back, I was going to start building a paper trail. Because this wasn't just personal anymore. This was professional. And I wasn't going to let them ruin both. The next evening, Drew showed up at my door like he always does. No warning, just instinct. He was holding 2 chocolate croissants in a paper bag and a bottle of $3 wine. The same combo he brought after my first heartbreak and again when I missed out on that design grant by 1 vote. He didn't say anything at first, just handed me the bag and waited. I broke somewhere between the first bite of pastry and the 3rd sip of wine. I told him everything. The messages, the lies, the way it all spiraled out of my hand so fast I could barely catch my breath. He listened. Like really listened. Not offering advice, not rushing to fix it. Just being there. And then he said it. "You've got 2 options," he said, swirling his wine in a chipped mug. "Let them write your story or write a better one yourself." I stared at him, the words sticking in my throat. My hands were still shaking, but somehow my voice came out steady. "I'm done begging for a seat at their table. I'm building my own." And just like that, the shift happened. Not in fireworks, not in some big dramatic moment, but in a quiet clarity that felt louder than any scream. We started planning right there on my living room floor. Sticky notes, sketches, a Google Doc called Joy Not Permission. I told Drew I wanted something real. Not revenge, not a pity party. Just something that reflected me, who I actually am, not who they keep saying I am. An art show, a garden dinner party, for the people who see me, who stayed, who didn't flinch when I cried, or get awkward when I succeeded. I'd design the invitations myself, handpick the flowers, create little table cards with the watercolors and short poems. 20 guests, no politics, no performance, just truth and joy. We called around for venues, most were booked, but then one woman said, "Well, we do have one Saturday left in May, May 20th. Drew looked at me and grinned. "I mean, come on. It's meant to be." And I didn't hesitate. "We'll take it." That was the moment the line was drawn. Not with yelling, not with ultimatums. Just with a date on the calendar, a small, beautiful yes to myself. And maybe the first one I'd given in years. 3 days after we booked the venue, I was in the middle of picking out linen colors when I heard a knock at the door. No text, no heads up, just a knock. I opened it to find my mom standing there with a grocery bag in one hand and a tight smile on her face. Thought I'd stop by. You've been quiet, she said. I stepped aside, hesitating for a beat before letting her in. She didn't ask about the wine glasses drying in the sink or the table mock-up spread across my kitchen island. She didn't ask how I was. She went straight for it. We need to talk about your event. I didn't say a word. She set the grocery bag down and took a deep breath. Fiona's wedding date has changed. It's now May 20th. Silence. Just silence. And then I laughed. Not loudly, not bitterly. Just one sharp, tired laugh. You moved her wedding to the exact same day as mine. It wasn't personal, she said. The same word she always uses when she knows exactly how personal it is. She and Tom had venue issues. This was the only date available. I stared at her, watching her rehearse lines. I'm sure she'd gone over 100 times in her head before ringing my doorbell. She folded her arms. You need to cancel your thing. My thing, this gathering or show or dinner or whatever it is. It's not worth causing more division in the family. I felt the tension crawling up my spine, but underneath it something steadier was rising too. Or what I asked. She didn't flinch or be prepared to lose this family for good. There it was. Not a request, an ultimatum. Cancel my joy or lose my family. I looked at her. Really looked. At the woman who raised me, who brushed my hair before picture day, who whispered, "You're sensitive. That's not a bad thing," when I cried too much as a kid. Now she was standing in my kitchen demanding I shrink myself again. My voice shook just slightly, but my words didn't. I'm not canceling my joy to make room for your control. She blinked. Once. And for the first time, I didn't look away. By the time my mom left, the damage was already underway. Group texts started lighting up my phone like fireworks. This is tearing the family apart. How could you make it about you? Fiona's devastated. She's crying over this. I didn't respond. I couldn't. Every message felt like a hit to the chest. But it was my grandma's call that cracked me. She sounded tired, soft. Sweetheart, I don't understand. Why would you schedule something on the same day? Couldn't you just move it? Her voice wasn't angry. Just confused, but I could hear someone else's words coming out of her mouth. Marlene's, my mom's, who knows? They got to her. They always do. I tried explaining slowly, gently, that I'd booked the venue before the wedding was moved, that I hadn't been invited to anything. She just sighed. I wish you girls would stop fighting. And I didn't know how to say we're not fighting. They just erased me and called it peace. After we hung up, I stared at the wall for a long time. That's when Drew showed up again. This time with Thai food and his laptop. No more spiraling, he said. We're planning. He created a group chat called Joy Squad. Invited everyone helping with the event, friends from college, 2 old clients turned besties, a neighbor who'd offered to bring handmade cookies. Within minutes, people were volunteering for everything. Got your flower runs covered? I'll build the playlists. Acoustic sunset vibes, happy to help with ride shares, if anyone's flying in. It was chaos, but the good kind. Support. Momentum. People showing up because they wanted to, not because they had to. But even with all of that love around me, the pain still sat heavy. Because even when you know someone's been cruel, it still hurts when they don't want you. Then late that night, I got a message that made me stop breathing for a second. It was from my cousin Lacey. We were never that close, but she'd always been kind in a distant, polite way. Her message said, "Hey, random question. Why weren't you ever invited to any of the wedding stuff? I'm starting to wonder." Just that. No accusations, no judgment, just a crack. A single jagged crack in the family's perfectly polished narrative. And through it, finally light started leaking in. May 20th arrived with the kind of soft golden light that feels like it's rooting for you. The air smelled like jasmine and fresh paint. Everything was quiet, intentional, and nothing felt performative. The long wooden table was set beneath string lights we'd hung ourselves. The playlist Drew made was already playing low through the garden speakers. And around me, 20 people. Not 100 strangers, not family members who whispered behind my back, but people who chose me. People who showed up without being guilted into it. Mateo stood near the roses, holding a glass of wine and smiling like he hadn't stopped smiling in weeks. At one point, he raised his glass and said, "To choosing people who choose you back." And I felt it, deep in my chest. Not validation, not revenge, but something quieter, more powerful. Peace. Later that night, after the last lantern was lit and the candles had melted halfway down their glass holders, I checked my phone. And there it was. A wedding blog I'd admired for years had posted photos from our event. The caption read, "When design meets soul, this garden celebration redefines modern authenticity." The post exploded overnight. Comments, shares. My follower count doubled. Old clients reappeared in my inbox. New brands reached out. I went to sleep feeling like I had finally stepped into my own skin without apology. And then the email came from Aunt Marlene. Not even a hello, just a formal demand. Take the post down immediately, out of respect for Fiona. I read it twice, and then laughed out loud. Not from amusement, from freedom. I didn't reply with words. Instead, I slid a printed copy of the wedding feature into an envelope along with a small yellow sticky note. Not competing, just existing. And for the first time in months, maybe years, I felt untouchable. Weeks passed, and for once life didn't feel like it was slipping out from under me. The wedding blog post kept circulating. My inbox stayed full. And then an invite, not just to attend but to headline. A creative showcase for authentic women in business. My name, right there on the announcement. Keynote speaker, Callie Ryan, visual artist, brand designer, storyteller. I stared at the email, not quite believing it. Not because I didn't think I was good enough, but because for so long I had accepted being overlooked. Now suddenly I was being seen. I was prepping pieces in my studio prints, color samples, handwritten notes on canvas when the knock came. I turned expecting a delivery, but it was my mom. And behind her, Brielle. They stood in the doorway like they weren't sure who should speak first. Then my mom said it. Was all this really necessary? Not angry, just tired. I didn't yell, I didn't flinch. I just looked at them and said, "It wasn't about you, it was about me." Finally seeing myself. They didn't have a response. They stood there for another second, waiting for something maybe, but I'd already said what mattered. They left without closure, and I didn't go running after it. A week later, I walked into the showcase venue. My work was displayed on clean white walls. People stopped to read every caption, to ask real questions, to connect. There was music, laughter, wine glasses clinking, and in the middle of it all, me, not smaller, not quieter, just whole, and surrounded by people who chose me without conditions. As I stood by my favorite print, a piece I'd painted the night before the garden party, someone asked, "Do you think things with your family will ever be okay?" I paused. Not because I didn't know, but because maybe that wasn't the point. Maybe healing doesn't require forgiveness. Maybe it just requires growth. So I smiled and said, "I don't need them to choose me anymore. I already did. And now I ask you, what would you do? Fight for inclusion or make peace and move forward?"